Hi there, I am Svilabekin, the rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, and caress and lovingly hit the subscribe button, ring the bell icon so you're notified when new videos drop. And I'm still sick. I apologize, I'm still sick. I may be hacking my lungs out at any point during this video. I'm just really happy and thankful to be able to even be making a video again. So it's not just my family has to listen to me rant and rave about the world, and I can share it with you too. Again, if I hack during this video, I do apologize. You're probably not contagious through the safety of YouTube. I have been watching Russell T Davies's Years and Years, and I love Russell T Davies. Unquestionably, he's one of the greatest television writers working today, and probably one of the greatest television writers of all time. We are extremely lucky that he was the one who headed up the revival of Doctor Who in 2005, which is where I became aware of his work, and I went back and saw everything he did, and I watched everything he does, unquestionably. Russell's work is just so authentic and bursting with life and love and family, and I think that's probably a reflection of who he is as a person. His last project was A Very British Scandal, which is about the Jeremy Thorpe sex scandal from the 70s, which wouldn't be a scandal today at all, about his closeted homosexuality, and it was really beautiful. It was funny, it was sweet, it was poignant, and it moved me to tears in places. There was a scene where he had a couple of marriages. They're obviously somewhat sham marriages, but his second wife was just so honest with him in one scene, and said, "Look, whatever it is, it's fine." And she was just so accepting of him, and really, I did honestly tear up when I watched it, and I will probably do it if I watched it again. But it's a wonderful, wonderful drama. I really recommend you check it out. It's very sweet. Yeah, it's great. So my overwhelming emotional response, I think, to Years and Years thus far, we're 2 episodes in right now, has been sadness. It's making me sad, as he so honestly and accurately as he only can do, documenting this angst. And that so many are genuinely feeling today in these times we're living in. And it's so much more of an intelligent and real commentary on today's times than Chris Chibnall's Doctor Who, which I found utterly banal and pointless and preaching and patronising. Which it was like a after school special, and I think we're probably going to get the same next year. Hopefully with some more monsters, but to make it go easier. Oh, I hope that's his last year. I hope we can move on to more inclusive entertainment after that. But back to Years and Years. So the other thing I've really found fascinating about Years and Years is it's offering an insight into somebody suffering and from the grips of a mass delusion, which I think a large percentage of the Western world today are trapped in. It's no secret that we live in very diverse times, and let's say the world we are divided into progressives and to traditionalists. Now, the trouble with being progressive is you always need something to progress to. About 5 years ago, the debate was about same-sex marriage. Now, cards on the table, I'm a rabbi, a real genuine rabbi, which means I subscribe to an Old Testament system of morality. And if you don't, if you're what I like to call normal, it's very important you understand that this is a personal code of conduct, a personal code of morality. Most people I know who share my outlook or are Christian or whatever, they are happy not to enforce their outlook on others. With the agreement that we've enjoyed for 30 years, we've enjoyed this ideological truce where we all could live and let live. And respect each other and have our differences, and then not let those differences make us hate each other. And I think that's a truth that's pretty much ended. I think it started to end with this same-sex marriage debate. Now, I think it would be wrong and hypocritical for same-sex couples not to have the same legal and financial rights that traditional couples have in the Western world. But equally, I feel it was a real fundamental mistake to redefine marriage from to be a union between two people rather than being a union between a man and a woman. And it's such a tiny redefinition, tiny change. But I think it's a change that shattered a brown boundary, and it broke a dam. Shattered a boundary. It broke a dam that is consuming our world. And again, I want to stress genuinely, I think same-sex couples should have exactly the same rights as any as different sex married couple. I'm not sure what the correct word is. Married couples. This is not an expression of hatred towards anyone. But the core of progressive ideology is to hate any sort of boundary. That's why they hate borders. They hate physical borders between countries. And they find anything other than open borders to be deeply immoral. And that small, simple redefinition, I said, broke a dam that broke the world. And that's what Years and Years is commenting on and talking about. As I said, being progressive requires that you always find new ground to progress to, which is one of the things that Davies talks about in Years and Years. And his horror at how fast these things happen. So, as I said, a few years ago we were talking about same-sex marriage. That moved into transgenderism. And now we're at a point where saying that a penis can only be male or a vagina can only be female is intolerable hatred and hate speech. That if you say it too loudly and too many people listen, thank God not many people are subscribing and listening to my channel, but if you say it too loudly, the methods of communications which are dominated and controlled by progressives will be taken away from you. You will be deplatformed, and they will remove your ability to communicate. And the transgenderism has resulted in just crazy things, like women being forced out of women's sports and other uniquely female spaces. Abortion has moved from being safe, legal, and rare to being a badge of pride and something that's fantastic to do. Everybody should try an abortion. Try it several times a day. And a baby being aborted, being able to killed up until any time, up until the umbilical cord is cut. So we've moved into society full on embracing infanticide, which I think is barbaric and insanity. That's just my opinion. And if you are of my opinion, if you don't agree with that, you are evil and you are immoral in the view of progressives. And the question really is, that's today. What's it going to be tomorrow? What are we gonna progress to tomorrow? And again, I think that's really one of the central things in Years and Years. Davis asked that question. He has one character that comes out as being trans and is wholly accepted by her parents. And then it turns out that being trans is actually being transhuman, and she wants to have her memories and consciousness duplicated and uploaded into a cloud and her body disposed of. In effect, she wants to commit suicide without realizing, and her parents are aghast because they reach the point where they go, at what point do we say this is not good? And if you ever say that at any point, you've broken the laws of being progressive. Another problem with being progressive, it comes with an inability to have any self-examination or memory going back more than a few minutes. It's like dealing with goldfish. Especially memory of anything that will call their worldview into question. Because that's the other mark of being progressive. It's totalitarianism. That forbids freedom of thought and freedom of expression from whatever is considered kosher. And whatever is considered kosher does change on a seemingly daily basis with no warning whatsoever. So there's an ability so again, if you're in the progressive side of the camp, which I think Davis is, because he's a gay atheist, so he kind of defaults into having to be in there. Although he's such a traditionalist as well, I feel him being very torn through it. But if you're in the progressive sphere, that you have a complete inability to understand the push that's going push back against progressives, and you need to see it as a form of oppression, which is the mass delusion, which I was talking about, which I think Davis himself is a victim of, and because he's so honest in such an incredible communicator, he's documenting so vividly. He sees the rise of populism in the form of Brexit or Trump or Nigel Farage as the rise of fascism. And this is represented in the show by Emma Thompson's character, Vivian Rook. Russell Tovey's character can't understand why anyone wouldn't see through Vivian Rook. And I think he's echoing Davis's point of view as well. Can't see. They don't understand why not everybody can see what he can see. And the answer is kind of painful. The answer is this: because what he can see isn't really there. It's a delusion. Like there was no Russian collusion. I knew there never was, and everybody who wasn't on that side of the fence knew there was never any Russian collusion, and there was never any need to be. It's been categorically proved now with like years and years of investigation. The people who voted for Brexit knew exactly what they were doing and what they were voting for, and they would be okay with a no deal rather than a bad deal. I remember Brexit. It wasn't that long ago. I know what people wanted. And to say that you wanted something else is so patronising and so self-serving. It was the desire to reclaim border control isn't racist. It's delusional. Excuse me. It's all a delusion, and a delusion that's spinning out of control faster and faster. I'm sure Davies didn't realise it would be as bad as it is right now when he wrote it, but that's really the point of Years and Years. People are screaming, cover up! Like just this weekend, people think that there's the White House is covering something up and they genuinely mean it. They're honest about it. And they're screaming it as a reaction to information being declassified and becoming transparent. That's what delusion is. That's what insanity is. When you see something and it doesn't match your worldview, it doesn't match what you want to think it is, and so you twist it. You twist it to with no logical reason to make it fit what you want it to be. So Davies is a writer. He's writing fiction. And in his delusional state, he's writing credible fiction and believable fiction. So he has Trump doing something truly evil and stupid towards the end of his second term, which causes a massive financial meltdown, with real life consequences for the characters, which is the drama that Davies pulls you into, because he makes you love and understand and love his characters because they're so real, and he makes you love the characters by not making them perfect. They're all flawed and they're so real, and you just want to want to be there for them, and you understand why they're all doing what they're doing. Again, that's the mark of I think a great writer. But to maintain that illusion, you have to follow the laws of being progressive, and that means never look back at the past. Never look back at any of the dire predictions that have proved to have been so very wrong. From Brexit, we were told there was going to be a massive financial meltdown the day after a Brexit vote, which never happened. Same as not joining the euro. It said we will have a massive meltdown. Or to Trump causing a financial meltdown, which the absolute opposite has happened, or nuclear war through his pompous ineptitude. And again, the absolute opposite has happened. Rather than being racist, in fact, and listen, I don't know what's in anybody's heart, but rather than having racist policies, Trump has doubled the support of the African American and Latino communities than any other Republican president of all time. And he has. These are just facts. I know they're abhorrent if you are progressive, but they're still factual. And I think it's the reason he has such high approval within those communities, because his policy. Well, I'm not going to say his policy. In his reign, he has the lowest unemployment for those communities ever, and the greatest prosperity. It's breathtaking, and then you add in there's this prison reform bill and his stance on enforcing borders, all of which is to support the African American and Latino communities, which again I think that they are in turn in their way expressing like a massive support for him. So it's the exact opposite of what was predicted would happen and reality, but you can't say that to people. Because it short circuits them. But anyway, that is the delusion that Davies, I think, is is trapped in. And I think he's trapped in unhappily. And again, for progressives, any boundary is wrong. Any boundary is immoral, regardless of it's a national boundary, a physical boundary defining sex, or even a boundary that defines what is a human being and what isn't, what is life and what isn't. All boundaries are evil. Another great example of that, by the way, as we've seen in media, is Guillermo del Toro's Oscar-winning The Shape of Water. That's, I think, the central message of that movie, that all boundaries are wrong and evil. So for Davies, his world is spinning out of control. On one hand, progressivism keeps progressing, and he can see it progressing to a place where he's deeply uncomfortable with before he can blink. And on the other hand, the populism that's pushing back against him, he sees as sheer, evil, fascist totalitarianism. So the upshot is that years and years makes me sad. It makes me sad because he's sad by what's going on. He's somebody who's provided as much entertainment and like just entertainment, like such loving entertainment over the years. It makes me sad to see his turmoil. Because he's just such an incredibly good communicator. I can see it so clearly. And I genuinely feel for him. And I feel for him and anybody else who's in the same position as him. And if you do share his particular angst, which I'm sure many people out there do, then I just wanted to say, okay, this is my message to you. I don't know if you ever hear it, but relax. Just relax. Really, honestly. It's all going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. If you look at the mood of the day when Reagan was president and Thatcher was prime minister, it was exactly the same. The world was always ending. And it just never happened. All these dire predictions never happened. Just relax. Just take a breath. You know what? Why not just sit on the fence and say, I think this might look bad, but I'm not going to let myself get upset. You control your emotional state, and I wish you would. Because we're fine. Everything's fine. Everything's going to be okay. No one wants to put you in chains. No one wants to blow up the planet. And, the real tragedy is this, is that the vast majority of people, both progressive and traditionalists, all want exactly the same thing, which is a return to normalcy. A return to the détente that we enjoyed for 30 years. I mean, it must be 30 years, where we could all live and let live, and we didn't hate each other over the most puerile, ridiculous things like border security or who we voted for. Who cares? We're people. People are so much more than political positions. And I think it's just sad we moved away from that. As I said, I think it was a détente and a truce that was broken by the same-sex marriage debate. And again, it's incredible that just such a tiny thing, which I remember at the time of the debate, people were saying, "Oh, this is a slippery slope," and then people on the outside, don't be ridiculous. No, we said this, and it's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened, and I just want to say, maybe we can all just live and let live. No matter who you are, if you're a gay atheist television writer or a Christian baker or even a rabbi from another planet. Think it through. Things don't have to be as crazy as they are now. And I think a good first step is just, why don't we all just stop being crazy, stop being triggered. I just think that's a good advice for everybody at every time, really, under most circumstances. My name is Fila Betkin. I am the rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, comment. Let me know what you think. Have a good day.